way downstream. And more bears are starting to use that area because many salmon, especially those sockeye salmon, are spawning and beginning to die. So downstream is a great place for bears to scavenge fish. This bear right here is kind of looking for that little blob in the water, sticking its face in the water. That's a fishing technique called snorkeling. And it's a different strategy. Bears, again, will change their fishing techniques depending on the situation. So they're adaptable creatures. And sticking your face in the water, they're just looking for... Most of the bears that I'm seeing at Brooks Falls are here because this is a spot where they can catch some fresher fish. If you are a brown bear, again, you're looking to maximize profit and calories. You want fresher fish, not the ones that are spawned out. If you can catch the fresher ones, it's much more energetically worthwhile. So most of these bears at the falls are actually looking for the fish that are still migrating, still have a bit of extra energy. And most of the fish that I have seen these bears catch over the past couple of days at the waterfall are coho or silver salmon. So the sockeye migration has certainly ended. We're not seeing a whole lot of sockeye trying to navigate the falls anymore because they're mostly spawning. But the coho and / silver salmon are still trying to move to their spawning sites. And if you tuned in a little bit late, my name is Mike Fitz. I am a fellow with Explore.org, which is the webcam partner for the bear cams in Katmai National Park, Alaska. I'm standing at Brooks Falls, about 300 miles southwest of Anchorage. I've been fortunate enough to watch these brown bears for about a decade now, off and on. And this summer has been very memorable for a couple of different reasons. We're seeing a lot of fish. I think that's one of the things that really sticks out for me. And the number of bears that we see fishing at Brooks Falls right now, that's very memorable as well. This is not a common thing in September. Again, most of the time in September, bears are scavenging fish downstream of the waterfall because salmon have stopped migrating by now. But we're seeing apparently a good run of silver salmon moving through the river, and that's keeping the bears occupied and well fed at Brooks Falls. Each one of these bears is carrying loads of fat reserves, so these are all very healthy, very successful animals. Brooks River, another question about different types of fish here. Brooks River does get 5 species of Pacific salmon. So sockeye salmon are most abundant, followed by the silver salmon, and then pink salmon in the river. But we also get a few chum salmon moving into the water each year, and then maybe a handful of kings. Not too many king or Chinook salmon, but a few might come into the river. Chinook salmon are probably some of the earliest to arrive, if they do come here. They'll show up in June. And then the cohos the chum salmon often arrive a little bit later in July. We're going to take a look at this bear that just caught a fish. So again, this young male. So that is a silver salmon that he just caught. Sorry, it's a little bit shaky, but I'm zoomed in quite a ways to try to give you a better view. This bear, one of those characteristic habits that he seems to have is he likes to use that rock as a table. When he catches his fish, he moves to that. He just kind of stands up like he's eating at a lunch counter. This is the 3rd fish that I've seen him eat in the past hour. And again, that's a fairly fresh fish from the ocean. So silver salmon weigh 8 to 12 pounds on average. It's a big fish that he's putting in his stomach. So he's easily gaining 15,000 calories over the past hour. And if you're wondering, how can I stand here so close to these bears? Well, brown bears, if you behave predictably around them, they can learn to behave in certain ways around us. And there are many bear viewing locations in Alaska where you can go with expert guides who will show you how to view bears safely. But here at Brooks River, I'm actually standing on an elevated wildlife viewing platform with other people. So I'm about 10 feet off of the ground. So if you're wondering, well, how can we stand here? I'm not very, I'm close to the bears, but I'm at a location where they can't reach me. So this allows them to give me a bit more space. We seem to see that somewhat often when mother bears encounter their former offspring, especially when they're younger. And I know there are some bear cam viewers that are looking forward to their trip to Brooks River in a few days. So yes, I will be here over the next several weeks doing more broadcasts like these, more live chats on explore.org. I'll be doing some play-by-play style broadcasts like these where I narrate the bear and salmon activity at Brooks River. And it is definitely unusual to see this many bears fishing at Brooks Falls right now. This is not something that I typically had learned to expect based on my experience. I started coming to Brooks River. I worked as a park ranger here for a long time, and my first summer here was in 2007. And at that time, there were some bears that fished the waterfall in September, but not very many. Most of the bear activity in September was downstream. So we're seeing a bit of a shift, at least this year, and I think that's just because there's been a very strong run of silver salmon. Number 503 caught another fish. This is the second one that we've seen during this broadcast, at least. This is another silver salmon. So again, they're predominantly not catching sockeye here up at Brooks Falls. The sockeye are spread out throughout the river, doing their thing with spawning, but the silver salmon are still trying to migrate beyond Brooks Falls. And that makes those fish vulnerable to predation by bears right here at the waterfall. 503 went straight for that belly of that salmon. It's probably a female salmon then. He opened it up, ate the eggs. The eggs are extremely valuable in energy compared to the weight of salmon flesh. An equal weight of eggs is, at least 6 times richer in calories. So if you want to, maximize your profit and your currency as calories, then eat those salmon eggs. These bears are not tagged or collared in any way, so we know a lot about them while they're here at Brooks River, but we don't know too much about their specific movements when they go away from the river. So when I'm recognizing these bears, I'm recognizing them by their physical characteristics. All of these bears I've seen in Brooks Falls before, and it can be difficult to identify them individually the first few times you watch them, but over time you notice that they're all very different behaviorally and physically. So again, go on Katmai National Park's website, or just type in Katmai ebook onto a search engine, and probably the right webpage will be the first hit for you. And you can download the Bears of Brooks River ID book. It's a fantastic book that explains a lot about the individual bears that we're seeing here this evening. Salmon move. Another question: salmon, do the silver salmon come in waves? And often, salmon do move into the river through impulses. So it's not consistently like a trickle of salmon. Sometimes we'll see just a few, and then other times we can see very large waves of fish, especially earlier in the summer when we're seeing the mass migration of sockeye salmon. So there's not always consistent numbers of salmon moving into Brooks River. And we're going to see less and less fish, migrating in because it is late in the year and that migration period is ending right now. If you're interested in the genetics of the Brooks River bears, there will be one of the biological technicians joining Ranger and